Yes, sir. Steelers fans, welcome into the Knoll Road Insider Report at midweek. The Steelers could move on from TJ Watt coming up this offseason. Could these possibly be the last 5 games of TJ Watt's Steelers career? And would that be the right move at this time? Thumbnail is father time ahead of schedule for the biggest stars in the Steelers and Ravens rivalry. We're going to dig all the way into that. Plus, a Steelers legend says, don't give up on this team now. We have an update on multiple Aaron Rodgers storylines as well as we get you set here for week 14. Here we go.
To the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
Yeah, buddy, it's Dawson, a new bear. If you like the video. If you have not subscribed yet, you could do that. We go long form at least 4 times weekly. If you are watching on a smart TV, just bring up that menu button, hit more options. You can find the like and the sub and all that in there. Okay, the thumbnail is Watt and Lamar is father time ahead of schedule. Watt did have a DNP at practice Wednesday with a toe. So hopefully that's not too bad. You know, toes can be quite a pain and difficult to come back from, really rob you of athleticism, strength, balance. Ramsey, Harmon, Queen, DNP either. So that is quite a bit of injury stuff to process and keep an eye on as this week progresses. But just focusing on Watt, my guy, it was Jerry Dulac saying, he believes the Steelers could part ways not only with Watt, but also Hayward in the offseason. I'd not be opposed to trading away one of your highest priced guys after the season and hoping you can get a number 1 pick in return. I want to be open-minded at every turn. I think historically the best organizations know when their players are washed up just a little bit earlier than the rest of the league, and they move those guys. I would love to think that a different coaching staff could keep TJ Watt in his prime, as several elite edge players have managed to do. 32, 33, 34 years old. These can all be very productive seasons for the greats.
What's the question? Do I believe it? What's the question? What side am I taking? This is really hard because
do you want him to?
Do I want him to move TJ? If he's gonna, so my big thing, my big like mind fuck with this whole thing is I've been wondering if is he hurt and they're just kind of hiding it. And now, injury report with a toe, you get stepped on. He was bitch moaning, complaining, up and down the sidelines. He was pissed off. He was hurt. And here's this other little, I don't need this shit kind of thing right now. With everything else we got going on, I don't need a toe problem, right? How many times do you have to get chipped? How many times do you have to get run away from? How bored do you have to get? How much of a hit to your pride, toxicity? You talk about Tomlin losing the locker room, all these different things. Like, something is off with Trent Jordan Watt. Like, Josh Allen spins out and he's got him lined up, and you go, this is the play. This is where it happens. If they run away from him the whole night, here comes the peanut punch, and he whiffs. And then he just goes, and he didn't even seem that mad about it. He wasn't punching the turn, like I just 29 or 31, like we talked about last night, of the same play. 3 years ago, 5 years ago, certainly, hell, maybe even last year, pissed off enough early in the year, right? Before people start talking about the counting stats fading. He just says, I don't care what Tomlin called or Terrell called. I don't care what I'm supposed to do. I'm beating my guy and I'm tackling James Cook by his damn dreadlocks. And this shit stops now. And he does his kick and they run off the field and everything changes. And it just doesn't seem like that even exists right now.
I mean, that's what age does to you. I've talked about the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul thought. Like, the fans are like, why doesn't Tyson just hit the hell out of him really hard? Because he can't. I don't think anybody in the NFL is signing up to, well, I guess I'm going to let them do good today because I just don't have it. No, these guys are out there in a fight for their lives, their pride. Like, there's a reason they made it to the NFL and they were one of the greats. And it wasn't by accident. It was because they could take themselves to a point in preparation and on game day. But the line between being really good and not is ultra thin, and just getting to the other side. Now, it's not like TJ Watt is bad. He's got 7 tackles. I mean, there's the non-counting stats say he's still a Pro Bowl level player, a Pro Bowl level player plus. And because of that, I think it's still possible that they could get maybe a 2. If a 1 is possible, they really need to, because what Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields and Russell Wilson the last couple of years have shown is it's not just that you had Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph quarterbacking. Like, this roster isn't ready to win now. So you're going to go into, we need to draft our next quarterback. We're going into more of a long-term rebuild. And there's a lot of stress in the organization right now as a result of that. But there's no way you are going to emerge from this rebuild before TJ Watt is totally washed, which could come next year or could come somewhere else. And if you can get draft compensation for him now and let him become totally washed on a different team, unless you have some sort of an emotional attachment to TJ Watt, which you do not want your front office being emotional at all, you got to deal him now if you can get decent value for him.
I mean, I'm absolutely emotionally attached because my wife looks really good in the jersey tied up. He's the kind of guy, he's the kind of player that, you talk about, guys that for all intents and purposes, you want your daughters to date and you want your son to grow up and emulate. And his brother, I mean, there's so much to like about the story. One helmet guy, all the things. I still want to believe in all the reasons why I would have pressed play on the extension, because of the sports medicine, because of the sports nutrition, because of the training, because of everything that's different now, where guys' peaks are lasting longer. But the fact that he's still in that 28 to 32 window, which has always been recognized as that like true, manly man athletic peak, and obviously different sports and, things can happen earlier, and guys like Bruce Smith could play forever. And you think that TJ's got that kind of ability. And then you go, okay, well, on the 23andMe branch, JJ's body started breaking down, and he was never quite the same. Still a dominant, like we say, Pro Bowl plus, maybe even sneak in an All-Pro if everything breaks right and a turf monster doesn't get you ever. It's just effort, attitude, the only things that you control, the want to, all the things that are surrounding this team right now. At the end of this season, you're going to look up whether the non-losing stuff continues or not. He's going to have double-digit sacks. He's going to be one of the handful of guys with a pick, a handful of forced fumbles, fumble recoveries. Like everyone makes the comparison, him and Garrett, and now all of a sudden sacks matter, and Garrett might break the sack record. And then you look at the thing that TJ could always hang his hat on was he would like double up tackles, right? And people point to the fact that he's only got 18 solo tackles in 12 games. Well, he's got damn near 30 assists. He's going to have a very typical looking TJ Watt on paper season, right? And then the next gen stats tell you that he's slowing way down, and the tape shows you that he's missing, more than ever before. But more than anything, like, it's the game-changing plays that you used to just take for granted that right now he's stuck in the mud. Like the DJ Moore touchdown against the Bears 3, 4, 5 years ago, that's a pick going the other way. And you just wonder if stuff like this that you're highlighting here, where, I mean, you're talking about, what is that, 0.12 from 0.75 to 0.87? I mean, you talk about the blink of an eye in the difference between, like, you and Dallas talk about Dak Prescott playing on time, right? You talk about how Micah Parsons, if he would have just been, a heartbeat, a blink of an eye faster, but when you're not, and Dak's playing that fast the other way, that's how small the margins are in this game.
It's a heartbeat, and that's 15 or 16% slower in your get off compared to 3 years ago. And you can see it incrementally going there with the advanced stats. You can see it going with the counting numbers as well. As, I mean, 2023 was glorious, but that's what sucks about getting to the other side of 30 for for a lot of guys. And then, last year it was 11. Right now he's at 7. You could absolutely see him finish with a sack a game over the final 5 weeks, or a sack and a half, and end up with 14 or 15. And you would have to consider it. But based on how the predictive stats and the analytics suggest what you are going to do, it's really not likely. So yeah, I'm gonna side with Jerry Dulac on this one. And if you can get something, I think you owe it to everybody involved, to be honest.
Find something though. You said a 2, maybe a 1. You're not getting rid of this guy for like a 5. You're not just doing it to do it, right? Or are you doing it because you're dumping salary at the same time?
Well, I mean, okay, so the Bengals couldn't trade Trey Hendrickson. Do we know what they insisted on that they couldn't get? Did they want a 1 for Trey? Yeah. And everybody's saying you can get him for a 2. I would definitely do it for a 2 or a 3. For a 5, I'm like, man, we're gonna bring him back next year, and he's gonna light the league on fire for the first 6 games, and we'll trade him at the trade deadline 2026. But I'm not giving him away. For Cam Hayward, I'd be giving him away for a 5. Like, does anybody? It's just
age alone, 5 more.
Yeah. But there's something to be said for clearing the money off of your cap, clearing out an opportunity for Herbig, and making sure that the player doesn't become absolutely worthless on your watch. I think there's some general team management stuff to look at. I think I had one. Go ahead.
We're gonna get some comments about how this is, anarchy. And so you talked about how 2023 was glorious, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you think that's chaos, then you think Jerry Dulac is chaos and just making stuff up. So, I mean, thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below.
What I'm saying is 2023 was glorious after what? The 2022, the injury that, had him basically come out and say, I'm going to retire early. I'm not going to let the game do what it did to my brother, and tell him when it's time to stop. I'm going to tell the game, and I'm going to go become a firefighter. Like, there's this whole other life out there for TJ Watt that has nothing to do with football. And you go, is that really where we're at? Like, if he's relatively healthy, he shouldn't be aging in dog years, right? So where's the want to? If this team was, when this team was in control and had the ability to take the North and put distance between everyone before all this nonsense happened, if they were fighting for the 1 seed, is there a different TJ Watt? Like, is he just coasting right now? Is that the problem? Does it change a scenery and sending him to a contender? Detroit comes calling and said Hutch needs a running buddy. Like, now he's got to go up to Detroit and prove everybody wrong. Does he need that? Like, I think that's the real question is, like, what's it going to take for him to answer that question for us?
I think right now it would take a lot of performance-enhancing drugs or a fountain of youth. And maybe that's the same thing to get that level of TJ Watt back. I think they have been close enough this year that if you're coasting, your only possible narrative is that they're just so disappointed with the coaches that they become disengaged. I think players can become complacent as well as they get rich, but I would be surprised if that would happen for TJ.
So, like,
Watt.
what I'm saying is, like, for years you were waiting for him to come screaming down the line, even if they were running away from him, and he's gonna dive and he's gonna take that peanut punch. Like, do you think now at 31, thinking about the 41 a year and locking that up and not putting anything in jeopardy and not putting his legacy, Ring of Honor, Hall of Fame, all those things, do you think now he's making, I don't want to say business decisions, but I'm not gonna go chase that because I'm not gonna get there, and instead of like wasting the 3 or 4 of those real good rushes that I have trying to maybe peanut punch something on the sideline, I'm going to save this in case the game is close and I do have a chance to get home 4th quarter, just because he's realizing, that he's not immune to all the things that we're talking about with Father Time.
Yeah, I think that's the 15% difference. He was quick enough and good enough to get there with full effort and dive and, make that play, get the trip him by his shoelaces or whatever it might be. I just don't think he's athletic enough to get there anymore. And as a result of that, he's probably not trying to chase things down nearly as much because he knows in his sports brain not going to get there. All righty. Up next here on the Knoll Road, Let's take this same conversation to a slightly more fun place when it comes to talking about the AFC North and Ravens Steelers. And this is the much more fun, washed up conversation for Steelers fans to have. The year Cam Newton won MVP.
If they're still here, by the way, after we just traded TJ Watt.
Hey, I think a lot of Steelers fans are ready for it. But yes, there might be some Steelers fans who decided they don't want to hear any of that. And I get it, right? There's an emotional attachment to your favorite players. And I salute you guys for being loyal Steelers fans. But the year Cam Newton won the MVP and took them to the Super Bowl, he was 27 years old.
Yep.
And it was fantastic. The year after that, it wasn't very good. He had 2 more years where it wasn't close to Pro Bowl, but it was like starting quality. By age 30, it was over. Lamar Jackson, always injury prone, has hit a new high as far as volume of injuries here in 2025. I think every body part below his waist has been on the practice report. Ankle, knee, hamstring, hip. I think it's 5 different things this year. And how old is he? He's 28 years old. How old is he about to be? He's about to be 29 years old. Lamar Jackson's an accurate thrower. I don't know about his decision-making and processing in the pocket. I imagine the Ravens aren't totally confident either. But if I'm Baltimore right now, I'm thinking this is unsustainable. And this is not going to get better with Lamar Jackson, an injury-prone guy approaching 30 years old. I think this could be father time arriving slightly early for him because of all the extra miles that are on his legs from all the different cuts. But he is he's averaging 60 yards a game for his career. Since the injury started this year, it's 20 yards, less than 20. He's averaging 19 yards rushing per game. The big explosives are not there. And you have to wonder how many injuries that he's playing through and how healthy he is going to be able to get. But, yeah, that's, I think it's possibly good news. It's like, if you're covering the Cowboys and RG3 arrives in your division and he's dominating and looking like he could be an MVP in his rookie year, and then his second year he tears his ACL, you're like, wow, that was a dodged bullet. And, I mean, he's been doing this for now, 8 years in Baltimore, very high level. He's been a major pain in your ass. I think we might be very close to the end of Lamar dominating. And if I'm Baltimore next year, we need to prioritize getting him a dominant wide receiver 1, move Zay Flowers to wide receiver 2. They did extend Mark Andrews today. They gave him another 3 years. So, you got your tight end, you got Isaiah Likely. There's enough here, but we need to find out. Now is the time to find out if Lamar Jackson can be a real pocket quarterback to keep the prime of his career going for the next 3 to 5 years, because I would have very little faith that the Lamar that we've known up to this point is ever going to be a consistent factor for the Ravens again.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about faith and you talk about this style of quarterback, it's hard not to immediately start talking about Randall Cunningham. And what's really breathtaking about thinking about comparing guys, whether you go through Vic and, who's your favorite running quarterback and what does that really mean? Because you talk about Dak Prescott all the time, covering him in Dallas. He's never run the ball more than 75 times a year, Dak. And then you look at some of these guys, the Cam Newtons, the Jalen Hurtses, and of course, Lamar Jackson. And I think everyone assumes because his yards per carry has always been so high, his success rate and all those things that he's got over 1,000 carries. And that's, regular season, not including playoffs, not including sacks, not including the runs where you hold the ball to throw it away and have that tweak, that torque, that unnecessary because you have a get out of jail free card. And one of the things that has always been challenging about Lamar, right, is all the big plays, all the explosives, and go back to the Greg Roman stuff. And you go why are they losing playoff games where he's throwing the ball 59 times? And you go, oh, well, Tennessee won 28-12. Yeah, but they scored. It was one of those things where you got to dig in and play the way that you're built to play. And everyone was trying to prove that Lamar could throw. And then now that he's won these MVPs and he's put up these QBRs and other things, it was all still built on the fact that you're having to defend him and Derrick Henry back there together. He wasn't just turning around and handing it to Derrick Henry. Someone had to account for Lamar. And let's not forget in this that Lamar is so gifted that he many times in his career intentionally misreads the zone read and then just goes and outruns the guy.
It's incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you start talking about that kind of speed, that kind of twitch, and the same way we're talking about TJ going from like 0.75 to 0.87, you lose 10, 15, 20% of that. The game here is I can still do that. But now he is getting caught by a shoestring or the turf monster or whatever it is. And now it's not just one thing that you're mitigating from week to week. It's hip bones connected to leg bones connected to all of it. And now you are asking him with what has really always been a lesser wide receiver room. And they have tried to invest injuries as well there too, right? With, Bateman and all these different guys. It's not just like Nuke at the end of his career and he's old, but Nuke still can do what Nuke has always done, which is body dudes up, right? Andrews with the injury, never the same after it. Likely has been in and out. They've had a lot of problems with continuity, and they've never really had developed, sustained that true one guy. And if you think it's Zay Flowers, you're kidding yourself. He could be the best two, or running buddy, wide receiver 1B if you had, a big dude for him to play off of. But to have Zay as your wide receiver one, and I love Zay. I think he's a tremendous talent, but the way they play versus what they ask him to do is it doesn't match up to the conversation that you need to have, which is how does Lamar Jackson become Randall Cunningham with the Minnesota Vikings? And what you're taking for granted there is what? Maybe the greatest wide receiver tandem of all time.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, right? I want to see if Lamar Jackson can step into that different kind of role if I'm the Baltimore Ravens, because I'm sure that him continuing to run is just unsustainable. I mean, it really never worked out that great for Michael Vick. They had the big moment where I think they were the first team in 50 years to win a playoff game at Lambeau. Like he had some real high highs, and then he checked back in with Philadelphia as a different kind of player and had some big games and stuff like that. But Jalen Hurts is done as a runner. Like he's taken his money in his ring and saying, I'm not going to be entering retirement in 5 years, barely able to walk. We're good here. We won the Super Bowl, mission accomplished. Can't stay healthy when I try to run. It's just knee tendonitis. Carson Wentz made it for 4 years. Jaden Daniels is already too hurt. You could see that coming when he was in college, the way that he ran like a crash test dummy. Yep. Jackson Dart, I don't really think he has a viable argument to be made that he's going to have a good career. That guy can't stay healthy. Like the running thing is a cheat code in the NFL, but you have to dole it out in appropriate doses.
Well, and the thing about Lamar Jackson, and a lot of people might not realize this, is he's much more closer in body type to Jaden Daniels than he is, and Randall Cunningham than he is to Cam Newton, Josh Allen, those guys. When you talk about being 240, 250, taking those hits, and also like dishing them out, like that's the thing about Lamar as well. Is like there have been moments where he's been called out about pulling back on some of the running and trying to prove that he can be, quote unquote, real quarterback and do things from the pocket more traditionally. And when there have been moments where when things get chippy, he's not afraid to put his shoulder down and kind of prove to people that he can take the hits and prove to people that he can take the beating that comes with it. And the thing that has always been, he's so damn slippery. And going back to when he was at Louisville and Bobby Petrino, a guy who wants to throw the ball, saying, no, we're going to run the ball with this lethal weapon, this Heisman Trophy, this guy that ultimately gets asked to move to wide receiver in the NFL despite all of his college exploits. Like that's how exceptional of an athlete was, beyond all the latent communal racism and things that were a part of that conversation. And when you look at it right now, you go, where does it go from here? Because Andrews isn't going to find the fountain of youth. You can take as much HGH as you want when those bones break and you're on the wrong side of age and wear and tear. I mean, there was a time where Mark Andrews had an argument that he was the best two-way tight end, that you would want him on your team, if not your fantasy league, over Travis Kelce. And then now all of a sudden he looks like a shell of his former self, and he's going to do, things the right way. He's going to be Jason Witten for as long as you want him to be. And then what's he going to be remembered for? Dropping the ball in the playoffs when everything was on the line and being part of the reason that Lamar can't get over the hump. And You go back to Zay, you go to Mark Andrews, you go to Lamar himself, and you just start going, where do the answers come from?
Yeah, I think for Josh Allen and for Lamar Jackson and for all these guys as they approach 30, it's got to come from good protection and a running game without you. Because you're going to need to be balanced. And the great thing about these running quarterbacks is they can give you the offensive balance by themselves. But I think you fall into a trap if you think this guy's going to be able to do it by himself and stay healthy. I would say we really don't need to run that much until we get to the playoffs. And if we can't make the playoffs without our quarterback running, we don't really need to be risking him in order to get there. We need to draft better or get more aggressive in free agency or, coach him up a little bit better. Okay, up next here on the Knoll Road, you want to go to Willie Colon saying, don't give up on these Steelers. Here we go.
And it was tough because when you turn on that game and you watch the tape, through all 4 quarters, the Steelers didn't have an answer schematically or physically. They got bullied, right? You talk about the Bills being down 2 tackles, and Josh Allen never touched the turf. That's not Steeler football. On top of that, you watch James Cook rush for 249 yards and look like the second coming of O.J. Simpson. That was tough. What's even tougher is our battle cry is Renegade, performed by the Sticks, a rock group. They played that and Steeler Nation booed. So this looked like it looked like I can't even, like, I watched this and I felt like a sinking, like a really like a sick feeling in my stomach, because I realized after there's nobody coming through those doors to help the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So he empathized with Steelers fans, but he went on to say, you get nothing from giving up. You've gone this far. You've been through all the ups and downs. And what you have to do is believe in the leaders in this locker room, have a lot of pride. Pride's not worth a squirt of urine to me. It's a game of football and it's a young man's game. I like it when my guys have pride, but I would much more prefer that they're insecure people with incredible talent, world-class talent. So I would say back to Willie, nobody's given up. Like, booing Renegade is a massive sacrifice, and it's a massive statement. Giving up would be not going to the game, not watching, not engaging. Like, make no mistake, Steelers fans, even though they want to say this season is toast, we need to trade everybody and draft a quarterback and fire the coach, that's not giving up. Giving up is real apathy.
This is, you talk about pride, right? And then what comes before the fall? It's the same. It's a double-edged sword, right? Where, I mean, what's making Aaron Rodgers saying, calling people out publicly? Is that pride or is that leadership? And the difference is winning. Like you win and you call dudes out at the podium, coach or player, coach or quarterback, I guess, because maybe left guards shouldn't be calling people out. The less they hear your name, the better chance you have to make the Hall of Fame, right? That's what you say. They only hear your name in certain positions when you screw up. Whereas everybody knows what Aaron Rodgers does on every play. And I mean, you run some of the simple concepts, whether it's cover 3 against 4 verts and different things have been called out, or just, oh, hey, here's a simple little spot route. Here's mesh. The thing that's really troubling about all this is when you miss a ball to Roman Wilson up the sideline in 30-mile-per-hour winds, they're not blaming Aaron Rodgers for a bad throw. They're blaming Roman Wilson for the tilt of the top of his route, right? When he misses Jonnu coming on the mesh, try to force one to DK, it's not that Aaron Rodgers didn't see Jonnu and didn't read the defense. It's Artie Smith sucks. So, like, at a certain point, we can't talk about TJ slowing down and Lamar having to evolve without talking about Aaron Rodgers maybe being a way bigger part of the problem than anybody wants to admit.
Yeah, and Rodgers is a part of the show here tonight. I'm glad you mentioned that. Jerry Dulac with another report saying Rodgers had his receivers, tight ends, and running backs to his house tonight to watch film and go over plays. This was last night. Ben Skoranek brought a cake. Players saying happy birthday to Rodgers. Turned 42 this week. Also, Rodgers said in a media session on getting Freiermuth more involved, it's above my pay grade. So he says that today after all the skill players and pass catchers were hanging out at his house last night. That sounds to me like they did just have an epic bitch session.
Yeah, and I think Ben, we talked about Ben bitch moaning and complaining and saying maybe it's time for Tomlin to move on, maybe fresh start, maybe this, that, or that. But one of the things we haven't talked about yet with Roethlisberger is saying that maybe this is one of those weeks where Aaron needs to pretend that the headset doesn't work and just call his own shit, because it sure as hell seemed like they did finally punch it in and they were right there to be able to do it again. And then you say that and it is funny. It's also really fucking interesting. And then you go, well, who made the call on the 3rd and 9 to run the ball and then punt? Because some people say that Aaron checked that, and some people say already called that. And there's so much stuff that happens at the line of scrimmage with a guy who's seen as much. I mean, there's nothing Aaron Rodgers hasn't seen. Unfortunately, there are now some things that he can't do.
But this quote right here is a clear sign. They're pointing at the coaching staff. You say above my pay grade. That's another advancement on this story. Is it coaches? Is it players? I don't know. I think they all suck. Well, okay. I think Aaron Rodgers is a trash quarterback at this point in his career. He had the wool pulled over our eyes for about 6 weeks. He ain't good. Your wide receivers aren't good. Your offensive line isn't good. And now we're regressing to finger pointing. We're devolving to finger pointing, which is a sign the grown-ups in ownership of the front office need to step in here and maybe start making some moves before this thing's even officially over.
What was the difference? They were winning. So when you're winning and you struggle, but you've hit Calvin Austin for the win, you're clutch. When that doesn't happen and everything starts falling apart, you suck. There's no gray area in this game. And you talk about it being a young man's game. He's far from that. I'm a December baby, and my baby's about to turn 2. And then, of course, little baby Jesus. It's a big, big month in House Lesniewski. And my December football, on Saturday, you talk about Remember November, right? And the stretch run to get to a bowl game, or now the playoff. And on Sunday, it's about December, and it's about the stretch run to the playoffs, about playing your best football, about being on the ramp, arrow pointing up, and everyone rowing the boat in the same direction. And right now, this team is fractured. And right now, Pat Freiermuth is one of those dudes. I've been saying for a couple years now that it's Tomlin's doghouse, but there's rumblings now, and you start to hear cracks in the sidewalk about how it might be Artie's doghouse. And if you're not one of his guys, which Freiermuth does not appear to be, then they're not going to play you. And 88 getting paid what he's getting paid, having the history of production, and their problem being middle of field, their problem being red zone. It is criminal coaching mismanagement, whether it's Tomlin or Arthur Smith or whoever is responsible for Pat Freiermuth not playing more and for them not using him to his capabilities, especially when Jonnu, despite Aaron missing him on the mesh play we talked about, not getting open, not having, justifying his money, justifying he can't block me in a room full of mirrors. And they got him and Gregory Rousseau, playing tug of war with the game on the line. So is that Arthur Smith or is that Aaron Rodgers? And if Arthur Smith is that bad, is Aaron Rodgers not good enough to kick them into something better?
Let's go to my guy, Jack Sperry over here. There was a lot of difference other than winning and losing. First 7 weeks of the season, absolutely a quarterback the Steelers could win a playoff game with the proper help around him. Adjusted EPA per play, 11th. Completion over expectation, 8th. Yards per attempt, 10th. Passer rating, 9th. Since then, 33rd, 33rd, 31st, and 20th. Like Aaron Rodgers, is this age? Is this fatigue?
Sure.
Did the schedule get more difficult? I don't know, but like he is really fallen off since the first couple of months of the season, and it's disappointing to me that he's pointing the finger like that at the coaching staff to say above my pay grade. I thought he had evolved from the guy that tried to throw Mike McCarthy under the bus at the end there in Green Bay. I really did.
What's funny about that too is what hasn't changed is like the depth of target, the Broderick Jones, like a lot of the leaky stuff up front. The line got better in a lot of ways. I think people feel better about the effort, the attitude, and the stickiness of those guys up front. And then it was Aaron Rodgers holding the ball, and Aaron Rodgers, thinking he could still put the cape on and get out the back door and sack it himself in some places. I mean, my big thing is you hear Mike Tomlin go, halftime interview, we need to come out and establish the run. What do? Play action pass, get sacked. ball's going the other way. Like, how many times have they said this is what we need to do, and then they do the exact opposite thing?
Too many times, man. And the fan base needs some relief. I just don't know if that relief is losing all of the games to make the path clear, or getting a big divisional win against the Ravens so you can at least have a higher probability of a playoff appearance here before, ultimately things come to an end. All right. We'll be back Friday, Saturday, Sunday, talking Steelers, Ravens. And until then, for New Bear, I'm Dawson. We'll see you here on the Knoll Road.